Burn it!" Lieutenant Commander Brett Hawkins said, laughing as he dropped the worn flight jacket into the barrel. The leather caught first. Commander Helena Rivera's jacket, the one she'd died in. The one Maya Chen had carried through 3 war zones. Orange flames devoured the sleepskin collar, the faded canvas, the ghost shadows where classified patches had been. Maya stood in the darkness watching the only piece of her mentor turn to ash. Her hands didn't shake. Her face showed nothing. But behind her eyes, something cold and absolute crystallized into a single thought. Tomorrow, they'll learn exactly who they just dismissed. Tomorrow, they'll understand what they burned. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see how far Maya's story reaches around the world. Maya's boots hit the tarmac at Naval Air Station Oceana at 600 on a Tuesday that nobody would remember. The C-130 transport had deposited her along with 3 pallets of aircraft parts and a sealed container marked for the base commander's eyes only. The loadmaster barely glanced at her transfer orders. "Maintenance crew reports to Hangar 7, he said, already moving on to the next manifest. She shouldered her duffel, everything she owned fit in one bag, and started walking. The air smelled like jet fuel and Atlantic salt. FA-18 Super Hornets screamed overhead in pairs, their afterburners painting the dawn sky. This was the home of VFA-103, the Thunderbolts, one of the Navy's elite strike fighter squadrons. Their kill record spoke for itself. Their reputation for arrogance did too. Maya was 27 years old, 5'4", and weighed maybe 115, soaking wet. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun that added exactly 0 inches to her height. The Marine Corps jacket she wore, olive drab, no name tape, patches removed, hung loose on her frame like she'd borrowed it from someone bigger, someone who mattered. She looked like exactly what her transfer papers said. Corporal Maya Chen, aircraft maintenance technician, reassigned from Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. A mechanic. A wrench turner. Nobody. That was the point. Hangar 7 was organized chaos. A dozen Super Hornets in various states of assembly filled the massive space. Maintenance crews swarmed over them like ants, checking hydraulics, running diagnostics, prepping birds for the day's training sorties. The noise was incredible. Impact wrenches, hydraulic lifts, shouted conversations echoing off metal walls. Chief Petty Officer Martinez found her standing just inside the hangar door. "You Chen?" he asked, not waiting for an answer. "Great. We're short 3 people and I got 6 jets that need pre-flight. You worked Super Hornets before?" "Yes, Chief."
F-404 engines?
"Yes, Chief."
Thank God. He thrust a clipboard at her. Bird 307, full diagnostic. If you find anything hinky, tag it and move on. We got pilots briefing in 90 minutes, and they expect perfect aircraft. He started to walk away, then stopped. And stay out of the ready room. Pilots don't like maintenance wandering around their space.
"Understood, Chief." She spent the next 4 hours elbow-deep in aircraft systems, working with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. She found a hydraulic leak on 307, a fitting that was 3 turns loose from catastrophic failure, and tagged it. Found a cracked wire bundle on 309 that would have caused a sensor malfunction. Fixed a sticky actuator on 311 that the previous crew had missed. She didn't talk to the other maintenance personnel. Didn't ask questions, just worked. Around 1100, the pilots started filtering into the hangar. They were impossible to miss. Flight suits tailored to fit like fashion statements, patches covering every available inch, squadron insignias, cruise patches, personal call signs rendered in elaborate embroidery. They moved with the swagger that came from flying million-dollar aircraft at Mach 1.6. The kind of confidence that tipped over into arrogance so gradually You couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Lieutenant Commander Brett Hawkins led the pack, 32 years old, square-jawed, with the kind of smile that probably melted hearts at the O Club bar every Friday night. His call sign, Hammer, was stitched across his name tape in gold thread. He had 847 flight hours, most of them logged showing off. "Heard we got fresh maintenance blood," Hawkins announced to his wingmen, loud enough for half the hangar to hear. "Someone actually volunteered to work on our birds. That's either brave or stupid." Lieutenant Riley Boxer Chen, no relation to Maya, laughed. "Probably stupid.
Who volunteers for Oceania? This place is where careers come to die. Or hide," added Lieutenant Morrison, Preacher Wells. "Maybe our new mechanic screwed up somewhere else, and this is their punishment tour." They were walking past Maya's workstation. She was underneath 309, running a final check on the wire bundle she'd replaced. All they could see were her boots and legs sticking out from under the fuselage. Hawkins stopped. "Hey, maintenance." Maya slid out on the creeper, stood up. She barely came up to his shoulder. Her hands were dark with hydraulic fluid. She waited. Hawkins looked her up and down, his expression shifting from curiosity to something like disappointment. "You're the new transfer?" "Yes, sir." "Corporal Chen, is it?" He'd glanced at the clipboard hanging on the aircraft. "You're a long way from the Marines." "Yes, sir." "You even old enough to work on these birds?" This from Boxer, grinning at his own joke. "I'm qualified, sir." Hawkins stepped closer, invading her space in a way that was just barely acceptable under military courtesy. "Qualified is a pretty low bar, Corporal. We don't fly qualified aircraft. We fly perfect ones. Think you can handle that?" Maya met his eyes. Hers were dark, steady, completely unreadable. "I can handle it, sir." Something about her stillness bothered him. Most junior enlisted either got nervous around officers or tried too hard to impress. She did neither. She just existed, like a piece of equipment waiting to be activated. "We'll see," Hawkins said. "My jet's 305. I expect it ready to fly in 60 minutes. If there's so much as a loose screw, you and I are going to have a conversation you won't enjoy." "Your aircraft is ready now, sir. Hydraulics are at spec, avionics are green, engines are clean. Pre-flight is complete." Hawkins blinked. "I didn't ask for a status report." "You said you expected it ready. I'm confirming it is." The other pilots exchanged glances. Was this tiny mechanic actually being insubordinate, or just literal-minded to the point of absurdity? Hawkins's jaw tightened. "Outstanding, Corporal. Keep up that enthusiasm." He walked away, his wingmen following. Maya heard their laughter echo off the hangar walls. "Did you see her?" Preacher said. "She looks like someone's kid's sister playing dress-up." "Probably couldn't reach the pedals in a Hornet if she tried," Boxer added. "Maybe that's why she's maintenance," Hawkins said. "Some people are born to fly. Others are born to serve the people who fly." Maya returned to her work. Her face showed nothing, but her hands, hidden beneath the aircraft, had curled into fists so tight her knuckles went white. The jacket was in her locker in the maintenance crew quarters. She'd carried it for 3 years, ever since Commander Helena Ghost Rivera had died in her arms in a shot-up helicopter over the South China Sea. Rivera had been her instructor, her mentor, the woman who'd seen something in Maya that Maya hadn't seen in herself. "You've got the hands for this," Rivera had told her during their first training flight. "Smooth on the controls, no wasted movement. That's rare, Maya. Most pilots fight the aircraft. You dance with it." The jacket was ancient, genuine WWII-era A2 leather that Rivera's grandfather had worn flying B-17s over Germany.
Rivera had worn it through Top Gun, through 3 combat deployments, through the classified program that didn't have a name in any official record. When Rivera died, Maya had been the only other person in that helicopter. Rivera had pressed the jacket into Maya's hands. "Finish what we started," Rivera had whispered, blood on her lips, the helicopter going down. "Show them what we are." Maya had finished it, had completed the mission that killed Rivera, had flown the experimental aircraft out of hostile territory with 1 engine and no hydraulics,
Had landed on a carrier deck in the middle of a typhoon because failure wasn't acceptable. They'd given her a classified commendation and orders to disappear. The jacket was all she had left of the only person who'd believed in her. She didn't wear it. It lived in her locker, wrapped in protective cloth, a shrine to a ghost. 3 days after Maya arrived, the incident happened. It was 2200. Most of the day shift had gone home. The night maintenance crew was smaller, quieter. Maya was in the hangar running diagnostics on 311's radar system. The work was methodical, soothing. Numbers and readouts and systems that behaved according to logic. Voices drifted from the far end of the hangar. Laughter. The distinct sound of people who'd been drinking. Hawkins and 4 of his squadron mates had requisitioned a burn barrel from the base facilities yard. It was an old tradition, burning the unwanted gear of transferred or departed personnel, a way to make space in the crowded crew quarters, they claimed. Really, it was an excuse to drink beer and tell stories. Maya heard them but didn't pay attention. Wasn't her business. "Hey, whose locker is this?" someone called out. "It's not locked." "Probably that new girl," another voice. "The mechanic who thinks she's hot stuff." "Let's see what she's got." Maya's head came up. Her locker. She'd forgotten to lock it. A stupid, careless mistake. She stood up, started walking toward the voices. Not running. Running would show weakness. By the time she got there, Hawkins had the jacket in his hands. He held it up to the firelight, examining it like an artifact from a museum. "Jesus Christ, look at this thing. It's older than my dad." "Check out the collar," Boxer said, pointing. "That's sheepskin. They haven't made these in like 50 years. "Think it belonged to her grandfather or something?" Preacher asked. "Who cares?" Hawkins turned the jacket over. The patches had been removed long ago. Regulations required it for classified personnel, but their outlines remained. Faint shadows where insignias had been sewn and then carefully extracted. "It's trash either way, taking up space." Maya stopped 10 feet away, close enough to see every detail, far enough that they hadn't noticed her yet. "Maybe we should put it back," said Lieutenant Yates, Chaos Murphy, the youngest of the group. 24 years old, on his first squadron assignment, he still had some conscience left. "I mean, it probably means something to her." "It's a jacket, Chaos," Hawkins said, "not the Mona Lisa. Besides, we're doing her a favor. This is a front-line squadron. We don't have room for sentimental garbage. She wants to be Navy. She needs to learn to let go of Marine Corps nostalgia." He balled up the jacket. Rivera's jacket. The one she'd died in. The one Maya had promised to honor, and held it over the flames. "To moving forward," Hawkins said, "and leaving the past where it belongs." He dropped it in. The leather caught first. Maya watched the sleeve curl, blacken, ignite. The canvas followed, the tough fabric resisting for a moment before the fire found its way through. The sheepskin collar melted, sending up a plume of acrid smoke. The outline where Rivera's wings had been, where her name patch had been, disappeared into ash. The pilots laughed, clinked their beer bottles together, already moving on to the next story. Maya stood in the shadows and watched the only piece of her mentor burn. She didn't move, didn't cry out, didn't scream or attack
or do any of the things a normal person might do watching something precious destroyed. She simply stood there, her face absolutely calm, and felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. The grief was still there, the loss, but underneath it, colder and harder than diamonds, was a clarity she hadn't felt in 3 years. She'd been trying to hide, trying to be small and invisible and forgettable, trying to honor Rivera's sacrifice by fading into the background, by serving quietly, by being the mechanic nobody noticed. But Rivera hadn't died so Maya could hide. Rivera had died so Maya could become what she was born to be. Maya turned and walked back to her workstation. Her steps were silent. Her breathing was steady. Behind her, the jacket burned to nothing. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow they'll understand what they've done. The next morning, Captain Douglas Mercer, commanding officer of Naval Air Station Oceana, was drinking his first coffee of the day when his secure terminal chimed. The sound it made was different from normal email notifications. This was the tone reserved for flash traffic. Priority Alpha. He set down his coffee and entered his authentication codes. The message was from Nav Air, Naval Air Systems Command, and it was brief. Classified asset arrival, NAAS Oceana. Call sign, Serpent. Full operational authority granted per NavSpec War Directive 4771. Providing tactical support for Hurricane Intercept Protocol. No advance notification authorized. Commander will identify as required. Mercer read it 3 times. Hurricane Intercept Protocol was theoretical. A contingency plan for exactly one scenario. A high-altitude threat approaching the eastern seaboard under weather cover so severe that normal intercept aircraft couldn't reach it. The plan had been developed 15 years ago after 9/11, refined after various drone incidents, and had never, not once, been activated. Until now, apparently. His second secure terminal lit up. Meteorology brief. Hurricane Artemis had formed off the Bahamas 72 hours ago. Category 4. Projected track put it on a direct course for the Virginia coast. Evacuation orders were already being issued for coastal communities. And somewhere in the classified annexes of the weather brief, buried under layers of restricted access, was a note that made Mercer's blood run cold. Unidentified aerial contact detected at 61,000 feet. Track corresponds with Hurricane Eye Wall. Speed inconsistent with weather balloon. IFF transponder non-responsive. Designated unknown-471. Something was flying in that hurricane. Something that shouldn't be there. His phone rang. The call came from a number with a Washington, D.C. area code he didn't recognize. Captain Mercer, this is RDML Nakamura, NavAir Special Programs. The voice was crisp, professional, and deeply serious. I assume you've received the notification? Yes, ma'am, though I'll admit I don't fully understand it. You're not supposed to. What you need to know is this. Unknown-471 is a drone. An experimental stealth platform that was being tested by DARPA. It malfunctioned during the hurricane and went autonomous. We've lost control.
What kind of drone, ma'am? A pause.
The kind that carries EMP weapons. The kind designed to knock out power grids and communications networks. The kind we very much cannot allow to reach Washington, D.C. Mercer felt his stomach drop. Ma'am, current track puts the hurricane's eye wall over the capital region in 18 hours. Correct, which is why you have a Night Stalker pilot inbound to your station. She'll fly the intercept. Night Stalker? Mercer had heard rumors, late-night stories from intelligence officers who'd had too much to drink, pilots who flew classified aircraft in impossible conditions, programs that didn't exist in any budget, operators who'd been erased from official records. Her name is Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen, Nakamura said. She's been embedded at your station for the past 3 days as cover. I believe she's currently assigned to maintenance duties in Hangar 7. The coffee Mercer had been drinking threatened to come back up.
The new corporal? The mechanic? That's her cover identity. Her actual rank and clearances are well above that. Captain, you will provide her with full access to aircraft 8991. It's a modified Super Hornet in your classified hangar. Only 3 people on your base know it exists. Now you're the 4th. When does she fly? When she decides the window is optimal. She has full operational authority. Your job is to stay out of her way and make sure nobody interferes. Understood, ma'am. One more thing, Captain. She doesn't advertise what she is. She prefers to observe, to assess, to understand the people around her before revealing herself. I suspect the next few hours are going to be very educational for your pilot community. Nakamura out. The line went dead. Mercer sat in his office for 5 full minutes, staring at nothing. The tiny mechanic who barely spoke, who'd been mocked by Hawkins and his crew, who'd spent 3 days fixing their aircraft with 0 recognition. That was a Night Stalker pilot. God help us all, Mercer thought. In Hangar 7, Maya was finishing her pre-flight on 305, Hawkins's aircraft. The jet was perfect. Every system green, every component operating at peak efficiency. She ran her hand along the fuselage, feeling the rivets under her palm. "You're a beautiful machine," she said softly. "Shame about your pilot." Her tablet chimed. Secure message, eyes only, protocol active, stand by for mission brief. Hangar 12, 1400 hours. Come as you are. Maya checked her watch. She had 4 hours. 4 hours to let Hawkins and his crew enjoy their ignorance. 4 hours before everything changed. She smiled for the first time since arriving at Oceana. It wasn't a kind smile. At 1320 hours, the base-wide announcement system crackled to life with a tone nobody had heard before. 3 short bursts followed by a long, sustained note. Every sailor and officer on the station knew what it meant because they'd drilled for it twice a year since 2001, but nobody thought they'd actually hear it for real. Alpha Protocol. All personnel to duty stations. No exceptions. Hawkins was in the middle of a simulator session when the alarm hit. His hands froze on the controls. Through the canopy display, he could see Boxer in the adjacent sim going through the same paralysis. "That's not a drill," Boxer said over the intercom. "No shit, it's not a drill," Hawkins replied. He killed the simulation and popped the canopy. "Let's move." The ready room filled within minutes. 32 pilots crammed into a space designed for briefings, not crisis response. The energy was electric, nervous. This was what they'd trained for, what they'd spent years preparing for. And now that it was real, everyone was trying not to look terrified. Captain Mercer entered with 2 officers nobody recognized. One wore a Navy captain's uniform with no name tape. The other was civilian clothes, ID badge showing Department of Defense, but nothing else. "Seats," Mercer said. No preamble, no pleasantries. "What I'm about to tell you is classified, top secret. Nobody leaves this room until I say otherwise. If you've got a phone on you, it's about to be confiscated." 2 security personnel moved through the room with a bag. Phones dropped in, no questions asked. Mercer keyed up the main display. Satellite imagery of Hurricane Artemis filled the screen. The storm was massive, a perfect spiral of destruction with an eye that looked like something had punched a hole through reality. 72 hours ago, DARPA was conducting a classified drone test over the Atlantic. The drone, designated Wraith 7, was designed for high-altitude reconnaissance in extreme weather conditions. It's a stealth platform,
radar invisible, equipped with electronic warfare capabilities, including EMP weapons.
Preacher raised his hand. Sir, you said was conducting. Past tense? The drone malfunctioned. We've lost all control. It's flying autonomously inside Hurricane Artemis at 61,000 feet. Current projections have it reaching Washington, D.C. airspace in approximately 16 hours. The room erupted, everyone talking at once. Hawkins felt his pulse hammering in his ears. Mercer held up a hand. Silence fell like a hammer. If that drone reaches the capital with its EMP package active, we're looking at a complete grid failure. No power, no communications, no internet, no financial systems. Everything east of the Mississippi goes dark for weeks, maybe months. The economic damage alone would be catastrophic. The loss of life from hospital systems failing, traffic control going offline, emergency services blinded. We're talking tens of thousands dead, minimum. The nameless Navy captain stepped forward. We've tried remote override, no response. We've tried jamming its control frequencies. It's shielded. We sent up an F-22 from Langley 3 hours ago. Pilot couldn't get higher than 58,000 feet before he started experiencing hypoxia, even with supplemental oxygen. The turbulence at that altitude inside the storm is beyond anything in our flight parameters. The Raptor nearly broke apart. "So what's the plan?" Hawkins asked. His voice came out steadier than he felt. "The plan is a gun kill," the civilian said. "Someone has to fly into that hurricane, climb to 61,000 feet, locate a stealth drone in zero visibility conditions, and shoot it down before it exits the eye wall."
"That's impossible," Boxer said. "The Super Hornet's service ceiling is 50,000 feet. We can't even reach it."
"A standard Super Hornet can't," the civilian agreed. "But we have one aircraft on this station that can. A modified Block 3 with enhanced engines, reinforced airframe, and experimental avionics. It can reach 70,000 feet. It can survive the storm. It can track the drone." Hawkins stood up. Every eye in the room turned to him. "I'll fly it," he said. No hesitation. This was the moment his entire career had been building toward, the mission that would make him legendary. "I'm the senior qualified pilot in this squadron. I've got more hours than anyone else in this room. I can do this." Mercer looked at him for a long moment. "Lieutenant Commander, have you ever flown in conditions worse than moderate turbulence?" "I've flown through tropical storms, sir. I've operated in high winds. Have you ever sustained 9G loading for more than 30 seconds? Hawkins paused. "In the centrifuge, yes, sir." "In an actual aircraft?" "No, sir, but have you ever experienced total hydraulic failure and recovered?" "Sir, I don't see how that's relevant." "It's relevant because all of those things will happen to whoever flies this mission," Mercer said. His voice was flat, clinical. "The turbulence inside that eye wall will slam you around like a toy. You'll be pulling 9, maybe 10 Gs just trying to maintain stable flight. The wind shear will be trying to rip your wings off. The electrical interference will probably knock out half your avionics. And if you survive all that, you still have to find and kill a drone that's specifically designed to be invisible." Hawkins felt his confidence waver. Just slightly, just enough to plant a seed of doubt. "With respect, sir, if I don't fly it, who does? We're the best squadron on the East Coast. If we can't do it..." "You can't," a woman's voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned. Maya Chen stood in the entrance to the ready room. She wasn't wearing maintenance coveralls anymore. She was dressed in a flight suit, not the standard green Nomex that everyone else wore, but something different. Black, form-fitting. No patches except a single insignia over her heart that nobody recognized. A 3-headed serpent coiled around a crescent moon. Hawkins stared. "What the hell is a mechanic doing in here?"
She's not a mechanic, Mercer said quietly. Lieutenant Commander, meet Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen. Call sign Serpent. She's a Night Stalker pilot. And she's flying this mission. The silence was absolute. 20 seconds of pure, shocked disbelief. Then Hawkins laughed. Not a cruel laugh. A genuinely confused, slightly hysterical laugh. "You're joking. Sir, you're joking. She's a corporal. She's been here 3 days fixing landing gear. She's fully qualified to fly every aircraft in this hangar, and about a dozen you've never heard of," Maya said. Her voice was calm, conversational. "I've got 437 hours in high-altitude intercept operations. 78 of those were in weather conditions classified as incompatible with human survival. I've performed 3 successful kills above 60,000 feet. 2 were stealth targets." She walked into the room. Every pilot tracked her movement like she was a predator moving through their space. "The corporal thing was cover," she continued. "The maintenance work was assessment. I've spent 3 days watching how you fly, how you prep, how you think. I've touched every aircraft in this squadron. I know which ones are truly airworthy and which ones you're pushing past their limits because you don't want to report a down bird." She stopped directly in front of Hawkins, had to look up to meet his eyes. "Your jet, 305, has a harmonic vibration in the port stabilizer at Mach 1.4. You haven't reported it because you think it's minor. It's not. Another 50 hours and that stabilizer separates. You'd die before you knew what happened." Hawkins' face had gone white. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I spent 4 hours testing every frequency response in that aircraft while you were at the O Club bragging about your simulator scores." She turned to address the whole room. "Boxer, your helmet's cracked along the left side seal. You tried to repair it with epoxy. Next time you pull high G, that seal fails and you get a bleed air leak directly into your face. Preacher, you're flying with a shoulder injury you haven't reported to medical. I watched you favoring your right side during pre-flight checks. In a high-stress maneuver, that injury locks up and you can't reach your ejection handle. Chaos, your survival vest is missing 2 flare cartridges because you let your girlfriend play with your gear and didn't check it after. If you punch out over water and can't signal rescue, you die of exposure." Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. "I know all of this," Maya said, "because that's what I do. I watch, I assess, I find the weaknesses, and then I decide whether the people I'm watching deserve to live or die by those weaknesses." The civilian from DoD stepped forward. "For those wondering, Lieutenant Commander Chen's security clearance is 3 levels above top secret. Her training includes programs that don't exist in any official record. She's qualified on aircraft you couldn't get within 100 feet of without being shot. And she's the only pilot on the eastern seaboard who can fly this mission and survive." Hawkins found his voice. It came out strangled, defensive. "Sir, this is insane. She's tiny. She can't weigh more than 118 pounds, Maya said, which gives me a better thrust-to-weight ratio than you. I'll accelerate faster, climb faster, pull tighter turns with less physiological strain. In a high-altitude mission, body mass is a liability. You're carrying 40 extra pounds of muscle that requires oxygen I can dedicate to brain function." "You burned my jacket," Maya said, her voice dropping to something colder. "Last night, outside this hangar. You found it in my locker and you burned it because you thought it was garbage. That jacket belonged to Commander Helena Rivera. She flew Top Gun in 2009. She graduated first in her class. She flew 73 combat missions in denied airspace. She trained me. She died saving my life. And you burned the only thing I had left of her." Hawkins's face went from white to gray. I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know. Because you didn't ask. You didn't think.
You just assumed that anything belonging to someone you perceived as lesser than you must be worthless. She turned away from him. Captain Mercer, what's my launch window? Mercer checked his watch.
The eye wall will be in optimal position for intercept in approximately 3 hours. You'll need to launch before then to get into position.
I'll need 90 minutes to prep the aircraft.
That gives me 30 minutes for mission brief and 60 minutes for final systems check.
She looked at Hawkins one more time. You want to prove you belong in this room? You can crew my aircraft, check my fuel load, verify my weapons, make sure every panel is secured and every connection is tight. Because if I die up there because you missed something, that's on you forever. Think your ego can handle that responsibility? Hawkins's jaw worked. No words came out. That's what I thought, Maya said. She turned to Mercer. Sir, I need access to Hangar 12 and the classified aircraft. I also need a full meteorological brief, updated satellite tracking on the target, and a comms officer who can handle encrypted burst transmissions. You'll have everything, Mercer said. Dismissed everyone, except mission-essential personnel. Hawkins, Boxer, Preacher, Chaos, you're with Chen. The rest of you, back to your normal duties and keep your mouths shut about everything you just heard.
The room emptied. The 4 pilots Maya had named stood frozen, unsure what to do. Maya looked at them. You coming or not? I don't have time to babysit your feelings. She walked out. After a moment, they followed. Hangar 12 was on the far side of the base, isolated from the main flight line by 3 security checkpoints that required biometric scans to pass. Maya walked through each one without breaking stride. Her escorts had to wait while guards verified their temporary clearances. The hangar door required a keypad code and a palm scan. Maya entered both. The door hissed open on pneumatic seals. Inside was a single aircraft. It looked like a Super Hornet. Same basic shape, same twin tails, but everything else was wrong. The paint was matte black, not the standard gray. The air intakes were shaped differently, optimized for high-altitude operation. The weapons pylons were empty, but the mounting points were clearly designed for ordnance that didn't exist in any standard inventory.
Jesus Christ, Boxer whispered. What is that?
That's aircraft 8991. Maya said. Unofficially called the Black Widow. It's got uprated F414 GE 500 engines that'll push me to Mach 2.1 in level flight. The airframe is reinforced carbon titanium composite that can handle 14G loading without structural failure. The avionics are 4th-generation AI-assisted, which means the computer will keep me alive even if I black out from G-forces. She walked around the aircraft, running her hand along the fuselage. She's also got an experimental plasma ignition system that extends the service ceiling to 72,000 feet, and a thermal management system that'll keep the electronics running even when the external temperature drops to -80. This is what you fly? Preacher asked. His voice was hushed, reverent. This is what I fly when I can't afford to fail, Maya said. She climbed the ladder to the cockpit, popped the canopy. Hawkins, I need fuel load verified. We're flying light. Minimum fuel for the mission profile. Every pound matters. Boxer, check the weapons bay. I'm carrying 2 AIM-120D missiles. Make sure the seeker heads are calibrated and the battery packs are fully charged. Preacher, I need my helmet. It's in the storage locker marked with my call sign. Don't touch anything else in there. Chaos, you're on safety checks. Walk the aircraft. Look for loose panels, fluid leaks, foreign object debris. Anything that looks wrong, you call it out immediately. They scattered to their tasks, moving with the kind of nervous energy that came from realizing they were in completely over their heads. Maya climbed into the cockpit and started running her personal checks. The seat was custom molded to her body. The controls fell under her hands with the familiarity of 1,000 flights. She activated the systems, watching the displays come to life in a cascade of green indicators. Fuel load is 8,400 pounds, Hawkins called up.
That's barely half capacity. That's exactly what I need, Maya called back. Any more and I won't make the climb rate. Any less and I won't have the loiter time to find the target.
Weapons are green, Boxer reported. Seekers are active, battery packs showing full charge. But Maya, these missiles, I've never seen this configuration before.
They're modified for high-altitude intercept. Standard AIM-120Es top out around 50,000 feet. These will track and engage up to 80,000. The warhead is smaller, but the guidance system is more sophisticated. I don't need to destroy the drone, just damage it enough that it can't maintain altitude. Preacher appeared with the helmet. It wasn't a standard HGU-55. It was sleeker, more integrated. The visor was a full face shield with a heads-up display that covered her entire field of vision. This thing weighs like 3 pounds, Preacher said, handing it up. How is that even possible? Classified materials, Maya said, securing it in the cockpit. Anything else I should know?
Aircraft is clean, Chaos called out. No FOD, no leaks, all panels secure. But Maya, the tailhook is still stowed. If you have to divert, I won't be diverting. If I don't complete this mission, there's no place safe to land anyway. She looked down at the 4 of them. You're all wondering if I'm going to die up there. The answer is probably. The mission parameters are beyond what any sane pilot would accept. But that's why they don't send sane pilots. They send people like me, who stopped caring whether they live or die a long time ago. The words landed like a physical blow. Hawkins stepped forward, looking up at her. The jacket, he said. I'm sorry.
That's inadequate, I know, but I don't have anything else. If you want to file a complaint, I'll accept whatever punishment.
I don't want your apology, Maya said. I want you to remember this feeling. The feeling of realizing you destroyed something irreplaceable because you made assumptions. The feeling of knowing that someone you dismissed as worthless is about to risk her life to save yours. Remember it. Learn from it. Become better than you are right now. That's the only apology that matters.
She closed the canopy, sealing herself in. Through the reinforced glass, she could see them standing there. 4 pilots who'd spent their whole careers believing they were the best, now facing the reality that they weren't even close. Maya activated the engine start sequence. The turbines began to spin, building from a whine to a roar that shook the hangar floor. Captain Mercer's voice came over her radio. Serpent, you're cleared to taxi. Tower is holding all other traffic. Weather update shows the eye wall is accelerating. Your window just moved up by 15 minutes.
Copy that,
Maya said. Her voice was completely calm. Serpent is rolling. The hangar door opened to reveal a sky the color of old bruises. The outer bands of Hurricane Artemis were already lashing the coast. Rain hammered the tarmac in sheets. Wind strong enough to flip ground vehicles howled across the runway. Maya throttled forward, guiding the Black Widow out into the storm. Behind her, in the hangar, Hawkins watched her go. She's really going to fly into that, Boxer said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, Hawkins replied. And we're going to watch. Because if she fails, we're all going to die anyway. Might as well see what a real pilot looks like. The Black Widow hit the first outer band of Hurricane Artemis at 3,000 feet, and the aircraft bucked like something alive trying to throw her off. Maya's hands stayed loose on the controls, letting the jet ride the turbulence instead of fighting it. The heads-up display painted the storm in layers of angry red and orange, a vertical wall of violence that stretched from sea level to the edge of space.
Tower, Serpent is entering the weather, Maya transmitted. Her voice sounded almost bored. Climbing to flight level 610. Time to target intercept approximately 42 minutes. In the Tactical Operations Center, Captain Mercer stood with his arms crossed, watching 3 different displays simultaneously. One showed Maya's aircraft telemetry, altitude, speed, G-loading, fuel consumption. Another showed the drone's projected track. The third showed Hurricane Artemis itself, a monster that covered half the Atlantic seaboard. Hawkins stood beside him, along with Boxer, Preacher, and Chaos. They'd been ordered to observe, to learn, to witness what a real pilot looked like when the stakes were existential.
She's climbing at 900 feet per minute, the air operations officer reported. Airspeed 260 knots, G-loading fluctuating between 3 and 6. What's a breathing rate? Mercer asked. The flight surgeon monitoring Maya's biometrics checked his screen. 14 breaths per minute, heart rate 82. She's calmer than I am. Hawkins watched the numbers. His own heart was hammering at over 100, and he was standing on solid ground. Maya was riding a missile into hell, and her pulse was barely elevated. Serpent Tower, Mercer transmitted. Confirm your status. Green across the board, Maya's voice came back. A particularly violent gust hit her aircraft, and the G reading spiked to 7.3. Her voice didn't waver. Although whoever designed this route clearly never flew through a hurricane, the updrafts are about 50% stronger than the weather brief suggested. Can you compensate? Already am.
Adjusting climb angle to use the storm's energy instead of fighting it. It's actually helping my fuel consumption. I might have an extra 10 minutes of loiter time. In the TOC, the meteorologist, a young lieutenant commander who'd been in the Navy for 12 years, turned to Mercer. Sir, that's impossible. You can't use hurricane updrafts to improve fuel efficiency. The turbulence alone would— She's doing it anyway, Mercer said flatly. Maybe you should update your models. Maya's aircraft disappeared into the heart of the first rain band. Lightning flashed continuously, strobing her canopy with white-blue light that should have been blinding. The heads-up display compensated automatically, filtering the visual chaos into usable data. Passing through 15,000 feet, she reported. Temperature outside is 53 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds gusting to 120 knots. I've got ice forming on my leading edges, but the thermal management system is handling it. Her right hand moved constantly on the throttle, making micro-adjustments to keep the engines in their optimal power band. Her left hand on the stick was looser, letting the aircraft move through the turbulence with minimal input. Fighting the storm was how you died. Dancing with it was how you survived. At 23,000 feet, she hit the first major wind shear. The aircraft dropped 400 feet in 2 seconds. The G-meter pegged at -2, trying to tear her out of her seat against the harness. Her vision grayed at the edges. She tightened her core muscles, forcing blood back to her brain through sheer physiological control. That was exciting, she said over the radio. Her voice was tight but steady. Just dropped through a shear layer. Aircraft handled it fine. I might need a new spine when I get back. Hawkins flinched. Boxer looked sick. They'd both experienced wind shear in simulators. The real thing was exponentially worse. And Maya was joking about it.
Serpent, you're approaching the lower boundary of the eye wall, the meteorologist warned. Wind speeds at your altitude are sustained at 170 knots, with gusts over 200. Recommend you consider abort. Negative, Maya said immediately. I'm already committed. Climbing through 28,000, switching to supplemental oxygen now. She reached down and activated the emergency oxygen system. Pure O2 flooded her mask, cold and metallic tasting. At these altitudes, the air was too thin to support consciousness without help. Her body was already compensating, heart rate climbing to 95, breathing deepening to pull more oxygen from each breath. The eye wall hit like a physical impact. 1 second, Maya was in heavy turbulence. The next second, the world became violence.
Wind that could sandblast steel slammed into her aircraft from 3 directions simultaneously. The Black Widow rolled inverted without warning.
Maya rode it, rolled back upright, felt the jet try to swap ends. She goosed the throttles, used pure thrust to muscle the aircraft back under control. The G-meter went insane. 4 Gs, 7, 9, back to 3, -1, 6 again. Her body was being crushed and stretched and crushed again in a cycle that would have knocked out a normal pilot in 30 seconds. Maya's vision tunneled. She did the breathing, short, sharp exhales to keep blood in her brain, tensing every muscle in her lower body to keep pressure in her core. Her G-suit inflated and deflated in sync with the forces, squeezing her legs and abdomen. "Tower," she grunted. Speaking was difficult. Each word had to be forced out between pressure cycles. "In the wall. This is worse than briefed. Recommend you update flight parameters for future missions." "Copy that," Mercer said. He sounded like he was trying not to scream. "Your current G-loading is beyond survivable limits. Are you—" "I'm fine," Maya interrupted. The aircraft is rated for 14. I've only hit 10.2. Plenty of margin. Only 10.2. Hawkins felt his knees go weak. 10 Gs meant she was experiencing 10 times her body weight. At 118 pounds, that meant her body thought it weighed 1,180 pounds. Her heart was trying to pump blood that felt like liquid lead. Her lungs were trying to expand against pressure that could collapse them. And she called it plenty of margin. "Altitude 35,000, Maya reported. "Speed fluctuating but averaging 400 knots. I'm starting to see clear air ahead. I think I'm approaching the eye." "Confirm you're approaching the eye," Mercer said. "Temperature at your altitude should be dropping rapidly. Watch for icing." "Already got it. Wing surfaces are carrying about a 1/4 inch. Airframe heating is compensating. Passing through 40,000 now." Her breathing was labored, audible over the radio. Each word came with effort. The air at 40,000 feet was 1/5 as dense as sea level. Her body was screaming for oxygen it couldn't get. The supplemental system was helping, but it wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough at these altitudes. "Serpent, your blood oxygen saturation is dropping," the flight surgeon said, alarm creeping into his professional calm. "You're at 87%. Anything below 85 is hypoxia territory. You need to level off and let your body stabilize." "Can't," Maya said. Each word was clipped, economical. "Target is at 61,000. I'm at 4.2 now. Still climbing." She adjusted the oxygen flow manually, overriding the automatic system to push more O2 into her mask. It helped, marginally. Her vision was still sharp, but she could feel the edges of hypoxia creeping in, the subtle euphoria, the sense that everything was fine when nothing was fine, the temptation to just relax and let the darkness take her. Commander Rivera's voice echoed in her memory. "Hypoxia kills more test pilots than crashes. You feel good, you feel happy, you feel invincible, and then you're dead. When you start feeling too good, Maya, that's when you fight. That's when you stay angry." Maya thought about her jacket burning, thought about Hawkins's casual cruelty, thought about 3 years of hiding what she was, because it was easier than fighting for recognition. The anger was cold, but it was enough. It kept her sharp, kept her focused. "Passing through 48,000, she reported. "I'm through the worst of the eye wall. Entering the eye itself. Visibility is improving. I can see clear air ahead." The transition was surreal. One moment, she was being torn apart by winds that could flip a semi-truck. The next moment, she was in perfect calm. The eye of Hurricane Artemis was a cylinder of still air 20 miles wide, stretching from the ocean surface to the stratosphere. Around her, walls of cloud rotated slowly, majestic and terrible. Eye conditions confirmed, Maya said. Her breathing was steadier now. The calm air meant no turbulence, which meant her body could recover slightly from the sustained G-forces. Continuing climb. Target should be directly above me. At 50,000 feet, the Black Widow's engines began to struggle. The air was too thin to provide good combustion. The plasma ignition system kicked in, using electromagnetic fields to enhance the burn efficiency. Thrust dropped but stayed adequate. Maya checked her fuel. She'd used more than planned fighting through the eye wall. The math was tight. Very tight. She had maybe 15 minutes at altitude before she had to turn back or run out of gas. 15 minutes to find a stealth drone in a cylinder of airspace that measured 20 miles wide and 20,000 feet tall. Tower, activating enhanced sensors, she transmitted. Going weapons hot. She armed the AIM-120D missiles, felt them come alive on her wings.
The Seekers began scanning, looking for heat signatures, radar returns, anything that didn't belong in the pristine environment of the eye. Serpent, drone's last known position was bearing 035 at 61,000 feet, the operations officer reported. But that was 4 minutes ago. It could have drifted.
Or it could have changed course, Maya said. If it's truly autonomous, it might be evading, looking for the optimal exit point from the eye to maximize its chances of reaching the target. She rolled the Black Widow inverted, pulling the nose up, which was actually down since she was upside down, to reverse course. Blood rushed to her head. Her vision reddened. She ignored it, rolled back upright, carved the tight turn that put her on the reciprocal heading. The radar proximity warning chirped. It wasn't a loud alarm, just a soft tone that indicated something metallic was nearby. Maya's eyes snapped to the display.
There, a faint return, almost lost in the sensor noise.
63,000 feet, 12 miles away, moving at approximately 200 knots. Contact, Maya said. Adrenaline flooded her system, sharp and clarifying. Bearing 042, altitude 63,000, range 12 miles. Designating target as unknown-471. Beginning intercept. She pushed the throttles to maximum. The engines screamed, drinking fuel at a catastrophic rate. The Black Widow accelerated, climbing and turning simultaneously. The altimeter spun upward. 55,000, 58,000, 60,000. The air was so thin it barely registered as atmosphere anymore. This was the edge of space. Her aircraft was flying on thrust alone, the wings providing almost no lift. One wrong move would send her into a flat spin that would be unrecoverable. Range to target 6 miles, she reported. Acquiring missile lock. The drone appeared on her targeting display.
It was smaller than she'd expected, maybe 12 feet long with a wingspan of 20. Completely black. No running lights, no heat signature. It was only visible because her enhanced radar was operating on frequencies specifically designed to defeat stealth technology. I see it, Maya said. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it now. The hunter closing on prey. It's maneuvering. Definitely autonomous. Whoever programmed it did good work. It's trying to shake me. The drone suddenly rolled and dove, dropping 3,000 feet in seconds. Maya followed, pulling the stick back to steepen her descent, watching her airspeed build. The Black Widow was never designed to dogfight at 60,000 feet. Every maneuver was a calculated risk between maintaining enough energy to maneuver and bleeding so much speed that the aircraft became unflyable. Target is changing course, she reported. New heading 270. It's trying to reach the eye wall. If it makes it into the weather, I'll lose it. She refined the missile lock. The AIM-120D's seeker head was tracking perfectly, painting the drone with targeting radar.
but the range was still too long. She needed to be within 2 miles for a reliable kill.
5 miles, she said. 4.5. Come on, come on.
The drone dove again, harder this time. Maya followed, her hands dancing on the controls. The G-forces returned, not as brutal as the eye wall, but still significant. 4 Gs. 5. Her vision tunneled again, but she pushed through it.
3 miles. Locking up Missile 1.
The targeting computer chimed confirmation. She had tone. The weapon was ready. In the TOC, every person was holding their breath. Hawkins realized his hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. He was watching a woman he'd dismissed as worthless execute a mission he couldn't have survived for 30 seconds. The cognitive dissonance was staggering.
2.7 miles, Maya said.
Firing. The first AIM-120D dropped from its pylon and ignited. The missile streaked away, its motor burning bright even in the thin air. The exhaust trail drew a perfectly straight line toward the drone. For 3 seconds, it looked like a perfect shot. Then, the drone deployed countermeasures. Chaff exploded in a cloud of metallic fragments. The missile's radar seeker lost lock, tracking the chaff instead of the target. The weapon flew through empty air and self-destructed when its fuel ran out.
Miss,
Maya said. No emotion, just fact.
Target deployed advanced countermeasures. Compensating.
She adjusted her intercept angle, cutting inside the drone's turn. The Black Widow shuddered, on the edge of aerodynamic stall. She was flying at speeds that were too slow for the thin air, using pure engine thrust to keep moving.
2 miles, she reported. Locking Missile 2.
The drone seemed to sense her intention. It rolled inverted and pulled, diving for the eye wall with everything it had. Maya matched the maneuver, rolling and pulling, letting the nose drop into a pursuit curve. Her G-suit inflated painfully. 7 Gs. 8. 9.
Tone,
she grunted.
Firing.
The second missile launched. This time, Maya didn't wait to see if it tracked. She kept her radar locked on the drone, feeding updated targeting data to the weapon in real time. The missile adjusted course mid-flight, compensating for the drone's evasive maneuvers. The drone tried to deploy chaff again. The missile ignored it. It had learned. 3 seconds to impact. 2. 1. The warhead detonated 10 feet from the drone. The explosion was small at this altitude, not enough oxygen for a proper fireball, but the fragmentation pattern was devastating. Titanium shrapnel shredded the drone's left wing and control surfaces. The aircraft tumbled, losing stability, beginning an uncontrolled descent.
Target hit,
Maya said.
Her voice was steady, but there was satisfaction underneath.
Confirming destruction. Target is falling. No longer under power. Mission complete.
In the TOC, someone started cheering. Others joined in. Captain Mercer allowed himself a small smile. The flight surgeon sagged against his console in relief. Hawkins just stared at the screen showing Maya's telemetry. She'd done it. Against impossible odds, in conditions that should have killed her, she'd found and destroyed a target that 3 separate defense agencies had said was untrackable. She'd saved Washington, saved the entire eastern seaboard, saved millions of lives. And he'd burned her jacket because he thought she was nobody. Serpent, outstanding work, Mercer transmitted. Return to base. We'll have every emergency vehicle on the flight line ready for your recovery.
Copy that, Maya said. But Tower, we have a problem.
The celebration in the TOC died instantly.
During the intercept, I pushed the engines past redline, Maya continued. Her voice was calm, but there was something new underneath it, something that might have been concern.
Fuel consumption was higher than calculated. Current fuel state is insufficient for a standard recovery. The air operations officer pulled up Maya's fuel data. His face went pale. She's got maybe 12 minutes of fuel left. At current altitude and distance, she needs 20 minutes to reach the base. Can she divert? Mercer asked. Norfolk? Langley? Negative, the operations officer said. The hurricane has already hit the coast. Every airfield within 200 miles is either closed or experiencing conditions below landing minimums. Mercer keyed his mic. Serpent, options? I'm working on it, Maya said. Descending to conserve fuel. If I can get down to denser air, the engines will be more efficient. I might be able to stretch what I have. She rolled into a steep dive, trading altitude for speed. The Black Widow plunged back toward the eye wall like a falcon stooping on prey. 55,000 feet. 50,000. 45. The fuel gauge dropped with every second. 10 minutes. 9. 8. Tower? I'm going to try something stupid, Maya said. When I hit the eye wall on the way out, I'm going to shut down one engine. The other engine plus gravity will get me through the worst of it. Once I'm in clear air, I restart and hope I have enough fuel for final approach. Serpent, that's the only option, Maya interrupted. Unless you've got a tanker that can meet me inside a Category 4 hurricane? Silence. That's what I thought, Maya said. Entering eye wall in 30 seconds. If I don't make it, tell maintenance that aircraft 8991 was a pleasure to fly. She deserved a better pilot. Maya, wait! Hawkins grabbed a spare headset, plugging into the TOC communications panel.
This was the first time he'd used her first name. Maya, you're the best pilot I've ever seen. If anyone can make this work, it's you. A pause over the radio. Then, thanks, Hammer. That almost makes up for burning my jacket. The Black Widow hit the eye wall. Maya's left hand moved to the engine master controls and pulled the number 2 throttle back to cutoff. The right engine died instantly. The sudden asymmetric thrust tried to yaw the aircraft into a spin. She compensated with rudder, holding the Black Widow straight through pure muscle memory and 1,500 hours of flight time. The turbulence hit like a freight train. With only one engine providing power and thrust, the aircraft had half the authority to fight the wind. Maya was thrown against her harness hard enough to bruise. The G-meter spiked to 8, and she grunted against the pressure, her vision graying at the edges. Engine 2 shutdown complete, she reported. Her voice was strained but controlled. Fuel state now at 7 minutes, descending through 2,000 feet. Rate of descent 3,000 feet per minute. In the TOC, the flight surgeon was watching Maya's biometrics with the intensity of a man watching someone he cared about die. Heart rate 135, blood oxygen 83%. She's redlining everything. Can she make it? Mercer asked. He didn't want the answer, but he needed it. Physically, maybe. If she doesn't black out from hypoxia or G-forces. If the single engine doesn't flame out from fuel starvation. If the airframe doesn't break apart from stress. The surgeon's voice was hollow. Sir, she's flying a $15 million aircraft on prayers and spite. The fact that she's still conscious is a miracle. Hawkins was gripping the edge of the console so hard his fingers had gone numb. He watched the altitude readout dropping, 40,000 feet, 38, 35. Each 1,000 feet was a victory, and a countdown to disaster simultaneously. Come on, Maya, he whispered. Come on. At 30,000 feet, Maya hit a wind shear that dropped her aircraft like a stone. She fell through 2,000 feet of altitude in 5 seconds. The negative G's lifted her against the harness straps. Her stomach tried to exit through her throat. She forced herself to breathe, forced her hands to stay steady on the controls. That was interesting, she said over the radio. The understatement was so absurd,
that someone in the TOC actually laughed, a hysterical bark of sound that was equal parts terror and admiration. "Serpent, you're drifting south of the approach corridor," the air operations officer warned. "Recommend course correction to heading 090. "Negative," Maya replied. "I'm following the wind. Fighting it burns fuel I don't have. I'll correct once I'm through the worst of this." 25,000 feet. The fuel gauge was below 4 minutes now. The remaining engine was running perfectly, but it was drinking the little fuel she had left like a dying man gulping water. At 18,000 feet, she broke through the bottom of the eye wall into driving rain, but relatively calm air. The transition was sudden and glorious. The hammering turbulence stopped. The aircraft settled into stable flight. Maya's breathing slowed slightly. "Clear of eye wall," she reported. "Restarting engine 2. She moved the throttle forward and hit the ignition. The engine turned over once, twice. Didn't catch. She tried again. Nothing. "Tower, I'm having trouble with the restart," Maya said. Her voice was still calm, but there was an edge now, real concern. "Engine's not catching. Could be fuel flow issue. Could be the ignition system got damaged during the high-altitude ops." "Serpent, your fuel state is critical," Mercer said. He was trying to keep his voice professional, but it was cracking around the edges. "You need that engine." "Working on it," Maya said. She went through the emergency restart procedure, adjusting fuel mixture, checking electrical systems, praying to whatever God watched over pilots who made monumentally stupid decisions. The engine coughed, sputtered, caught. The number 2 engine spooled up, its beautiful roar filling the cockpit. Maya immediately pulled back both throttles to idle, conserving every drop of fuel. "Engine restart successful," she said. "Both engines online. Fuel state 2 minutes 30 seconds. Tower, I'm going to need a straight-in approach. No pattern, no holding. Just point me at the runway and get everyone else out of my way." "Serpent, the weather at Oceana is below minimums," the tower controller said. He was a senior chief who'd been doing this job for 20 years and had never sounded this scared. "Visibility 1/4 mile in heavy rain. Crosswinds gusting to 45 knots. We can divert you to—" "There is no divert," Maya interrupted. "I land at Oceana or I punch out. And if I punch out, you lose a $15 million aircraft. I'm landing. Give me the vector." Mercer made the call. "Tower, give her direct approach, clear the pattern, get crash and rescue standing by." All aircraft, emergency in progress," the tower controller transmitted on the general frequency. "Runway 23 is closed. All operations cease immediately." Maya was at 12,000 feet, 23 miles from the base. Her fuel gauge read 1 minute 45 seconds. The math was impossible. She couldn't make it. But impossible just meant nobody had done it yet. "Serpent is established on final approach," she reported. "Gear coming down." The landing gear extended with a hydraulic whine. The increased drag immediately slowed the aircraft. Maya adjusted power, balancing the need for lift against the catastrophic fuel consumption. 1 minute, 20 seconds. "Tower, I need wind check." "Winds 240 at 38, gusting to 45, the controller said. "Recommend you take runway 24 instead, less crosswind component." "Negative. 23 is aligned with my approach vector. Switching runways costs time and fuel I don't have." 55 seconds. The rain was a solid gray wall ahead of her. Maya activated the landing lights, but they just reflected off the water, creating a disorienting white glare. She switched them off, relying on instruments. Airspeed 160 knots, altitude 3,000 feet, distance 8 miles. 40 seconds. "Maya, you're too fast," Hawkins said over the radio. He couldn't help himself. Training took over. "You need to slow down for landing." "Can't," Maya replied. Slower means more power, means more fuel burn. I'm landing hot, or not at all.
She was coming in at 140 knots, 40 knots faster than standard landing speed. If she touched down at that speed, she'd need every foot of runway to stop. If she didn't make the landing, if she had to go around, she'd run out of fuel before she could climb to safe ejection altitude. 25 seconds. "Serpent, you're below glide slope," the tower warned. "Increase power." Maya ignored them. She was flying her own approach, using gravity and momentum to stretch the fuel. The runway appeared through the rain, a narrow strip of wet concrete that looked impossibly short. 15 seconds. The crosswind hit hard, trying to weather vane the aircraft. Maya kicked in rudder, holding the nose aligned with the runway while the aircraft crabbed sideways through the air. It was an advanced technique that required perfect timing. Most pilots couldn't do it in good weather. 10 seconds. She crossed the runway threshold doing 135 knots. The main gear touched down hard. Not a smooth landing, but a controlled crash. The tires screamed. The aircraft bounced once, settled. Maya deployed the drag chute and stood on the brakes. 5 seconds. The Black Widow decelerated violently. Maya was thrown forward against her harness. The engines flamed out from fuel starvation. Both of them, simultaneously. The aircraft was coasting on momentum alone now, bleeding speed with every foot. 3 seconds. She was halfway down the runway, still doing 70 knots. Too fast. 1 second. The fuel gauge hit 0. The aircraft rolled to a stop 3,000 feet down the runway, with 4,000 feet remaining. Maya sat in the cockpit, hands still on the controls, and realized she was shaking. "Tower, Serpent is safely on deck," she transmitted. Her voice was hoarse. "Aircraft is code 3. Both engines flamed out from fuel exhaustion. I'm going to need a tow." The TOC erupted in cheers. Grown men and women jumping up and down like children. The flight surgeon collapsed into his chair, hands over his face. Mercer allowed himself to breathe for the first time in 40 minutes. Hawkins ripped off his headset and ran. He burst out of the TOC into the rain, not caring that he was getting soaked. He ran toward the flight line, toward the runway, toward the black aircraft sitting in the rain like a wounded bird. By the time he reached her, Maya had already climbed down from the cockpit. She was standing on the wet tarmac, her flight suit soaked through, her hair plastered to her face. She looked small and exhausted and utterly unbreakable. Hawkins stopped 10 feet away, breathing hard. "You're insane," he said. "That was the most reckless, dangerous, irresponsible flying I've ever witnessed." Maya looked at him. Water dripped from her chin. "But I made it." "You ran out of fuel." "After I landed, which means I calculated correctly." She pulled off her gloves, flexed her hands. They were still shaking slightly. "You got a problem with my flying, Lieutenant Commander?" Hawkins opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "No," he finally said. "No, ma'am, I don't have a problem with your flying. I have a problem with the fact that I burned your jacket, and you still saved my life anyway." "I didn't save your life," Maya said quietly. "I saved everyone's life, including yours. There's a difference." "Why?" Hawkins asked. The question came from somewhere deep and honest. "Why didn't you tell us who you were? Why let us treat you like you were nobody?" Maya was silent for a moment, watching the rain. "Because I needed to know who you were, the real you, not the version of you that puts on a good face when you know someone's watching. I needed to see how you treated people you thought were beneath you. Because that tells me everything I need to know about your character." "And what did you learn?" "That you're arrogant, that you make assumptions,
that you don't respect the people who keep you alive." She looked directly at him. "But I also learned that you're a good pilot, that your crew trusts you, that when someone you dismissed as worthless risked her life, you cared whether she survived. So there's hope for you. Not much, but some." Boxer, Preacher, and Chaos arrived, running through the rain. They stopped when they saw Maya, sudden uncertainty on their faces. They were looking at her differently now, not as a mechanic, not as a small woman they could dismiss, as something else entirely. "Ma'am," Boxer said. He actually came to attention. We've never seen anything like that." "You'll see better," Maya said. "If you're lucky. If you work hard. If you stop assuming that the person in front of you isn't capable of greatness just because they don't look like what you expect." Preacher stepped forward. "The jacket we burned, whose was it really?" "Commander Helena Rivera," Maya said. "She flew Top Gun in 2009, first woman to graduate from the Night Stalker program. She had 300 combat missions. She trained me. She died saving my life during a classified operation over the South China Sea. That jacket was the only physical thing I had left of her." The four men stood in the rain, absorbing this, the weight of what they'd destroyed settling on them like concrete. "I would give anything to undo that," Hawkins said. "If I could go back—" "You can't go back," Maya interrupted. "None of us can. But you can go forward differently. You can look at the people around you, the enlisted crew, the maintenance techs, the support staff, and recognize that every single one of them has a story you don't know. That some of them might be more capable than you. That some of them might have sacrificed more than you can imagine. And you can treat them with the respect they deserve."
Captain Mercer arrived in a staff car, jumping out before it fully stopped. He approached Maya and executed a formal salute that was razor-sharp and held for 5 full seconds. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," he said, "on behalf of Naval Air Station Oceana, the Department of Defense, and the United States of America, I thank you for your service today. You saved countless lives. You've brought honor to yourself and to the Navy." Maya returned the salute. "Thank you, sir. Just doing my job." "The hell you were," Mercer said. He dropped the salute and his formal tone. "You flew a mission that had a 90% mortality prediction. You succeeded where we thought failure was inevitable. And you did it after being relegated to maintenance duty and disrespected by the very people you saved." He glanced at Hawkins and the others. "Which, incidentally, we're going to address." "No," Maya said. "Sir, with respect, we're not. These men made mistakes. They learned from them. They're better now than they were 4 hours ago. That's enough." Mercer studied her face. "You're serious." "I don't want apologies. I don't want people punished. I want them to change. And they will." She looked at Hawkins. "Won't you?" Hawkins met her eyes. "Yes, ma'am. I will." "Good." Maya turned back to Mercer. "Sir, I need to debrief. And then I need to call NavAir and explain why aircraft 8991 needs a complete engine overhaul and a new fuel system. And then I need about 12 hours of sleep." "You've earned it," Mercer said. "But first, there's someone who wants to meet you." A second car pulled up. A woman in civilian clothes stepped out, late 50s, gray hair, the kind of posture that screamed retired military. She walked straight to Maya and held out her hand. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, I'm Dr. Sarah Rivera, Helena's mother." Maya's composure cracked, just for a second. Just enough for everyone to see the raw grief underneath.
"Ma'am?"
she said, her voice breaking.
I'm so sorry. I should have—
Stop, Dr. Rivera said gently.
Helena made her choice. She died doing what she loved, protecting someone she believed in. She wrote about you in her letters, said you were the finest pilot she'd ever trained, said you'd do things nobody thought possible. She smiled through her own tears. She was right. They burned her jacket, Maya said. The words came out before she could stop them. I tried to keep it safe, but they— I know, Dr. Rivera said. Captain Mercer told me. And I brought you something. She went back to the car and retrieved a package wrapped in protective cloth. Maya unwrapped it with shaking hands. Inside was another A2 jacket, vintage leather, carefully preserved. Patches already sewn on, wings, a shield, a name tape that read Rivera. This was her first jacket, Dr. Rivera explained. The one she wore through flight school.
The one she wore when she learned she'd been accepted to Top Gun.
I've been keeping it safe, waiting for the right person to give it to. She held Maya's gaze. Helena would want you to have it, would want you to wear it, to carry her legacy forward. Maya took the jacket with reverence. It was heavier than she expected, heavier because of what it represented. She slipped it on. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her.
Thank you,
Maya whispered.
I'll honor it. I promise.
You already have, Dr. Rivera said. By becoming the pilot she knew you could be. By saving lives. By proving that excellence doesn't care about gender or size or what anyone assumes about you. She glanced at the assembled pilots. I hope everyone here learned that lesson today. Hawkins stepped forward. Ma'am, we did, and we won't forget it. Dr. Rivera studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Good. Because my daughter died believing that the next generation would be better than the last. Don't prove her wrong. No, ma'am, Hawkins said. We won't. Mercer cleared his throat. Lieutenant Commander Chen, you're officially assigned to VFA 103 as Senior Instructor Pilot, effective immediately. You'll be training the next generation of aviators, teaching them not just how to fly, but how to be better than they think they can be. Maya looked at him sharply. Sir, I'm Night Stalker. I operate in classified programs. I can't just— It's already approved, Mercer said. Admiral Nakamura made the call personally. You spent 3 years in the shadows. Time to step into the light. Time to make sure what happened here today, the assumptions, the disrespect, the nearly catastrophic underestimation of capability, never happens again. Maya stood in the rain, wearing Rivera's jacket, surrounded by pilots who finally understood what she was. She thought about 3 years of hiding, 3 years of being invisible.
3 years of telling herself it was safer to be underestimated. But safe wasn't why Rivera had trained her. Safe wasn't why she'd survived when Rivera died. Safe wasn't why she'd just flown into hell and come back. When do I start? Maya asked. Tomorrow morning, Mercer said. 0600. Ready room briefing. You're going to tell these pilots everything they think they know about flying is wrong. And then you're going to teach them the right way. Maya smiled. It was the first genuine smile anyone had seen from her since she'd arrived. Yes, sir. That I can do. The rain continued falling. The hurricane was moving north, its fury spent. The drone that had threatened millions was scattered across miles of ocean. And in a naval air station in Virginia, a pilot who'd been dismissed as nobody stood in the rain wearing a jacket that meant everything, finally recognized for exactly what she was. Hawkins approached one more time. Maya, I can't undo burning the jacket, but I can make sure I never make that mistake again. that I never underestimate someone because of how they look or what rank they wear. Will you teach me, not just flying, but how to see people the way you see them? Maya looked at him for a long time, seeing past the arrogance to the potential underneath, seeing the pilot he could become if someone pushed him hard enough. "Report to the hangar at 0500 tomorrow," she finally said, "before the official briefing. We're going to go through every assumption you've made about flying and dismantle them. It's going to be painful. You're going to hate me, but you're going to be better." "Yes, ma'am," Hawkins said, and he meant it. Maya turned to walk toward the ready room, toward a hot shower and a debrief and 12 hours of well-earned sleep. The jacket felt warm on her shoulders despite the rain. She could almost feel Rivera's presence, proud and present and permanent. They'd burned the first jacket,
But they couldn't burn what it represented. Couldn't burn the lessons learned, the skills mastered, the legacy that lived in Maya's hands and mind and heart. Tomorrow she'd teach. Tomorrow she'd transform a squadron that thought they were already elite into something better. Tomorrow she'd honor Rivera's memory by making sure no one else was ever dismissed for being different. But tonight, she'd sleep wearing a jacket that meant she'd finally come home. At 04:58 hours, Hawkins stood outside Hangar 7 in the pre-dawn darkness, coffee in hand, wondering if he was making a mistake. The rest of the squadron was still asleep. The base was quiet except for the distant sound of crash crews running morning checks. The hangar door opened. Maya stood silhouetted against the interior lights, wearing Rivera's jacket over her flight suit. She looked at Hawkins for a long moment, then stepped aside. "You're 2 minutes early," she said. "Good. That's the first thing you need to unlearn. Thinking that being on time is good enough. On time means you're already behind. Early means you're preparing to succeed." Hawkins followed her inside. The hangar was empty except for a single Super Hornet, his aircraft, 305, sitting under the work lights. "We're going flying?" he asked. "Not yet," Maya said. She walked to the aircraft and placed her hand on the fuselage. "First, you're going to tell me everything you think you know about this machine. Start talking." "It's an F/A-18F Super Hornet. Twin-engine multi-role fighter, max speed Mach 1.8, service ceiling 50,000 feet, weapons load—" "Stop," Maya interrupted. "You're reciting specifications. That's not knowing the aircraft. That's memorizing a manual." She tapped the metal. "This jet has 743 flight hours. The number 2 engine was replaced 4 months ago after a compressor blade failure. The radar has an intermittent glitch that causes false targets at ranges beyond 80 miles. The left main landing gear strut is 200 hours from mandatory replacement. The canopy seal leaks at altitudes above 40,000 feet. You want to know how I know all this?" Hawkins shook his head. "Because I touched every part of this aircraft. I read its maintenance logs. I tracked its history. I learned what it needs before it needs it." She looked at him. "You fly this jet, but you don't know it. And that ignorance will kill you." "How do I learn it the way you do?" "By caring more about the machine than your ego," Maya said bluntly. "By spending time with the maintenance crews. By asking questions instead of barking orders. By recognizing that the 19-year-old airman who torques your engine bolts knows things you don't." She moved to the cockpit. "Get in." Hawkins climbed the ladder and settled into the front seat. Maya climbed into the back, the weapons systems officer position. It felt wrong having her behind him, like the natural order had inverted. "Start the engines," Maya said through the intercom. Hawkins went through the startup sequence. Both engines spooled up smoothly.
He checked the displays, confirmed all systems were green. "Good," Maya said. "Now shut them down." "What?" "Shut them down. You're going to start them 10 more times. Each time, I want you to feel the sequence, not think it. Feel it. The vibration when the igniters fire, the sound of the fuel pumps engaging, the moment when the engine goes from spinning to running. You need to know this aircraft in your bones." They spent 30 minutes just starting and stopping engines. By the 8th repetition, Hawkins was starting to understand. He could feel the tiny hesitation in Engine 2 during ignition, the 1-second delay before it caught.
He could hear the slight whistle in the hydraulic system that meant pressure was building.
"Better," Maya said. "You're learning to listen. Now tell me about your pre-flight checklist."
I verify it with the crew chief, sign the forms, done.
Wrong. The crew chief verifies the aircraft is mechanically sound. You verify it's ready to keep you alive. There's a difference. She opened a panel near her seat. This circuit breaker is loose. It's been loose for 3 months. Nobody caught it because everyone assumes someone else checked it. In a high G maneuver, that breaker pops out and you lose all electrical power to your flight controls. You die. Hawkins stared at the breaker. She was right. He'd never checked it. Never even thought to check it. "How many other things am I missing?" he asked quietly. "Dozens," Maya said. "But you're going to learn. Starting now." At 0600, the ready room filled with pilots.
All 32 members of VFA 103 crowded into the space, buzzing with conversation about yesterday's mission. They fell silent when Maya walked in, still wearing Rivera's jacket. Captain Mercer was already there, along with the squadron commanding officer, Commander Pierce "Spike" Harrington. Spike was 52 years old, a former Blue Angels pilot who'd been flying Super Hornets for 20 years. He'd seen everything. Or thought he had. "Attention on deck!" someone called. Everyone stood. "Seats," Mercer said. "What you're about to hear is classified until it's not. Yesterday's mission saved approximately 8 million lives. The drone that Lieutenant Commander Chen destroyed would have crippled the entire eastern seaboard. The economic damage alone would have exceeded $2 trillion. More importantly, the loss of emergency services, hospitals, and infrastructure would have killed tens of thousands in the first week." He let that sink in. One pilot, one aircraft, one mission. That's the difference between catastrophe and safety. And that pilot spent 3 days watching you treat her like she didn't matter. Mercer's voice went cold. "That ends today. Lieutenant Commander Chen is now your senior instructor pilot. When she talks, you listen. When she criticizes, you improve. When she tells you you're doing something wrong, you assume she's right and you're wrong. Because she's proven she's better than anyone in this room." Questions? Lieutenant Morrison, preacher, raised his hand. "Sir, with respect, what's the chain of command? Commander Harrington is our CO. Is Chen above him?" Spike stood up. "For flight operations and training, yes. She has full authority to ground anyone who doesn't meet her standards, including me." He looked at Maya. "Which I'm fine with, because I spent last night reviewing her record. The unclassified parts, anyway. She's got qualifications I didn't know existed. So I'm going to learn from her, just like the rest of you." Pride is expensive. Staying alive is priceless. Maya stepped forward.
"Thank you, Commander. For the record, I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here to make everyone better, to push you past what you think your limits are, to show you that every assumption you've made about flying needs to be questioned." She pulled up a display showing footage from yesterday's mission, her heads-up camera recording of the intercept. The pilots watched in absolute silence as Maya fought through the hurricane, tracked the drone, made the kill, and barely survived the landing. When it finished, nobody spoke for 10 seconds. "That's what excellence looks like," Maya said. "Not the mission itself, the preparation. I spent 3 days studying this base, learning your patterns, understanding your aircraft, finding your weaknesses. By the time I launched, I knew more about your jets than you did. That's what saved my life." She pulled up another display, a list of names.
These are people on this base who have potential you've overlooked. Petty Officer 2nd Class Amanda Reese. She's a radar tech. She also has a civilian pilot's license and 1,200 hours flight time. She applied for officer candidate school and flight training 3 times, rejected every time because she's 34 years old, and the Navy decided she was too old. Maya let that hang in the air. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, Marine Corps, works in the tower. He's got perfect vision, perfect hearing, and scored in the 98th percentile on the aviation selection test battery. He didn't pursue flight training because his recruiter told him guys like him don't become pilots. What the recruiter meant was that Torres grew up in East Los Angeles and didn't fit the recruiter's mental image of what a pilot looks like. Several pilots shifted uncomfortably. Lieutenant Junior Grade Sarah Chen, no relation. She's a logistics officer. She's also got a master's degree in aeronautical engineering from MIT. She tried to transfer to flight training, denied because someone decided logistics officers can't be pilots. Want to know what she's doing right now? Processing supply orders. While you're flying jets, she could probably fly better than half this room. Maya moved closer to the assembled pilots. "Starting today, we're launching the Rivera Protocol, named after Commander Helena Rivera, the woman who trained me, the woman whose jacket you burned because you assumed it belonged to someone who didn't matter. The Rivera Protocol has 3 rules. First, competence over credentials. I don't care what your resume says. I care what you can do. Second, potential over prejudice. If someone has the skill, they get the opportunity. Period. Third, service over ego. You're here to protect people, not to prove you're special." "What does this mean practically?" Boxer asked. It means, starting next week, we're opening flight evaluations to anyone on this base who qualifies. Enlisted, officer, I don't care. If you can pass the physical, pass the cognitive tests, and demonstrate aptitude, you get a shot. Not a guaranteed slot, not a free ride. A shot. To prove you belong. Commander Harrington frowned. "Chen, the Navy has established pipelines for pilot training. We can't just—" "The Secretary of the Navy approved this yesterday," Maya said. Admiral Nakamura made the call personally. This base is now a test program. If it works here, it goes Navy-wide. If it fails, it's on me. She looked around the room. Some of you are threatened by this, thinking that opening the doors means your value decreases. Wrong. Your value increases when you're surrounded by excellence. When the person in the cockpit next to you earned their seat through merit, not because they fit a demographic profile, you're safer. You're better. You survive. Chaos raised his hand. "What about us? The pilot's already here? Are we part of this?" "Everyone's part of this," Maya said. "Starting today, we're implementing a new training curriculum. Advanced threat response, high-altitude operations, emergency procedures that go beyond the manual. You're going to learn to fly like I fly, which means you're going to hurt. You're going to fail. You're going to question whether you belong here." She smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "And then, you're going to get better. Because that's what happens when someone pushes you past comfortable into capable." Questions? Lieutenant Yates, Chaos, stood up. "Ma'am, I've got one. Yesterday you said you don't care if you live or die. That scared the hell out of me. Because if you don't care, how do we trust you to teach us? How do we know you won't push us too far? The question stopped Maya cold. For 5 seconds, she didn't respond. The room held its breath. That's a fair question, she finally said.
And you're right to ask it. The truth is, I stopped caring about my own survival 3 years ago when Commander Rivera died. I've been flying missions where death was more likely than survival because I figured my life ended when hers did. I was wrong. She pulled Rivera's jacket tighter around her shoulders. Her mother gave me this jacket yesterday, and she told me that Helena died believing the next generation would be better, that her sacrifice meant something. If I throw my life away on stupid risks, I dishonor that belief. So no, I don't have a death wish anymore. I have a mission: to make sure Rivera's legacy lives through every pilot I train. To make sure none of you die from ignorance or arrogance or assumptions. That means I care very much whether you live or die. And I'll push you exactly as far as you need to go. No further. Chaos sat down, satisfied. Good, Maya said. Now let's get to work. 3 weeks later, the hangar looked different. Where there had been 1 Super Hornet undergoing maintenance, there were now 4. Where there had been a handful of maintenance crew, there were now maintenance crew plus 6 pilot candidates, 3 enlisted personnel, 2 junior officers from non-flying specialties, and 1 Marine who'd driven from Quantico every weekend to participate. Amanda Reese was in a cockpit running simulator training. At 34, she'd been written off as too old. After 3 weeks with Maya, she was outperforming pilots 10 years younger. Michael Torres was studying navigation charts with Preacher, learning the tactical thinking that went beyond just flying the aircraft. The kid from East LA, who'd been told he didn't belong, was proving he belonged more than people who'd never been questioned. Sarah Chen, the logistics officer with the MIT degree, was working through aerodynamics problems with Boxer, demonstrating that understanding the physics of flight mattered as much as stick and rudder skills. Maya moved through the hangar, checking progress, offering corrections, pushing everyone past their comfort zones. Hawkins found her near the tool storage, reviewing maintenance logs. "I've got something to show you," he said. She followed him to the ready room. On the wall, mounted in a place of honor, was Rivera's old jacket, the one Dr. Rivera had given Maya. But Maya was wearing it, so how? "It's a replica," Hawkins explained. "I contacted Dr. Rivera, explained what we're doing here. She gave me photos of the original jacket, including all the patches and insignias. I found a company that does museum-quality reproductions. This one's exact. Every stitch, every patch, every worn spot." The jacket hung on the wall with a plaque beneath it. Commander Helena Ghost Rivera, Top Gun Class, 2009. Graduate number 1, Night Stalker Program. First female pilot. Kia, South China Sea. Died saving her wingman. Excellence requires no permission. Maya stared at it. Her eyes were bright, but she didn't cry. "The quote at the bottom," Hawkins said. "That was from one of her flight school recommendation letters. Her instructor wrote that Rivera never asked for permission to be excellent. She just was. And she made everyone around her better by refusing to accept mediocrity." "Why did you do this?" Maya asked quietly. "Because I can't give you back what I burned, but I can make sure no one forgets what it represented. Every pilot who walks into this ready room will see that jacket, will read that plaque, will be reminded that excellence doesn't care what you look like, how old you are, or what anyone assumes about you. They'll remember that someone who looked like she didn't belong changed everything." Maya reached out and touched the replica jacket. "She would have liked this,"
She always said the mission outlives the pilot, that what matters isn't how long you fly, but what you leave behind.
What you're leaving behind is bigger than a jacket, Hawkins said. You're leaving behind a system, a culture, a way of seeing people that doesn't filter through prejudice first.
Over the next 6 months, the Rivera Protocol expanded beyond Oceania. 3 more naval air stations adopted the program. Then the Air Force took notice. Then the Marines. By the end of the year, the military-wide policy had changed. Age limits were revised, alternative entry paths were established, and competency-based evaluations replaced demographic-based selections. Amanda Reese graduated flight training at 35 and earned her wings. She was assigned to VFA 103 as Maya's direct recommendation. On her first combat deployment, she logged 73 successful missions, the same number Rivera had flown. Michael Torres made it through officer candidate school and flight training. He became the first person from his neighborhood to fly jets for the Marines.
He went home on leave wearing his wings and spoke at his old high school. 47 kids applied for military service the next year because they saw someone who looked like them succeed. Sarah Chen transferred to flight training and discovered she had a gift for systems management. She became a test pilot, eventually working on the same classified programs that Maya had flown. The logistics officer everyone had dismissed ended up developing safety protocols that saved lives across the entire naval aviation community. Maya stood in the ready room 18 months after the hurricane mission, watching the newest class of Rivera Protocol graduates receive their wings. 23 pilots, men and women, ages 22 to 39. Every background imaginable. Every one of them extraordinary. Commander Harrington, now Captain Harrington after his promotion, stood beside her. "You know what the Pentagon's saying?" he asked. "That this program has a 93% retention rate. Pilots who come through Rivera Protocol stay in the service twice as long as traditional pipeline graduates. You want to know why?"
"Because they had to fight for the opportunity," Maya said. "They don't take it for granted."
"That's part of it," Harrington agreed. "But it's also because they know someone saw their potential when everyone else saw their limitations. That matters. That creates loyalty." Hawkins approached with Boxer, Preacher, and Chaos. All 4 of them had been through Maya's advanced training. All 4 had become better pilots and better leaders. "Maya, we've got a request," Hawkins said. "The Navy's launching a new training initiative. Advanced Threat Response for Squadron Commanders. They want you to run it."
"That's a Washington job," Maya said. "Desk work, politics. That's not my strength."
"It's whoever's strength who's doing it," Boxer said. "And you're the only person who can make it mean something. The only person who'll push back when some admiral tries to water it down for political reasons." Maya looked at the wings ceremony, at the pilots who existed because she'd refused to accept that potential should be wasted.
"If I take it, I need 3 things," she said. "First, I want Hawkins as my deputy, someone who understands what it's like to be wrong and choose to be better. Second, I want full authority to recruit instructors from any service, any specialty, any rank. Third, I want Rivera's name on the building, not hidden in a plaque, on the actual building, so every person who walks through that door knows whose legacy they're inheriting."
"Done," Harrington said immediately. "I'll make the calls today." That evening, Maya stood alone on the flight line, watching the sun set over the Atlantic. She was wearing Rivera's jacket, the real one, worn and weathered and precious. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dr. Rivera. "Saw the news about the training center. Helena would be so proud. You've honored her better than any memorial could. Thank you for keeping her alive in the best possible way." Maya typed back, "She saved my life. I'm just paying it forward." But that wasn't quite right.
She deleted it and tried again. She taught me that excellence requires no permission. I'm teaching others the same thing. Dr. Rivera's response came immediately. Perfect. That's exactly what she would have wanted. Maya pocketed her phone and looked at the aircraft lined up on the ramp. Tomorrow, 3 of them would be flown by Rivera Protocol graduates. Next month, it would be 6. Next year, maybe half the squadron would be pilots who'd been overlooked, dismissed, or told they didn't belong. And every single one of them would be there because Maya Chen had refused to stay invisible.
Because she'd turned her own experience, being dismissed, being underestimated, being burned, into a system that made sure it happened less often to others. She thought about the transport plane that had brought her to Oceania 18 months ago. How she'd been just another body, another replacement cog, another person nobody noticed. How they'd burned her jacket and thought they were burning trash. They hadn't known they were burning the past. And they definitely hadn't known they were igniting the future. Maya turned and walked back toward the hangar, Rivera's jacket warm on her shoulders, ready for tomorrow's mission. The jacket was a symbol, yes, but symbols only mattered if they inspired action, if they changed behavior, if they made people better. And that's exactly what had happened. They'd burned her old jacket. She'd returned in black ops gear, and then she'd transformed an entire system from the inside out, proving that excellence doesn't need permission. It just needs opportunity, and someone brave enough to demand it. The legacy wasn't the missions flown, or the lives saved, or even the protocols established. The legacy was the culture shift, the recognition that potential exists everywhere, often in people nobody's looking at. That the person counting bullets in a warehouse might be the person who saves millions. That the mechanic in coveralls might be the pilot who flies the impossible mission. That respect should be earned through competence, not assumed through appearance. And that the best way to honor the dead isn't to preserve their memory in amber, but to ensure their beliefs live through the actions of those they inspired. Maya Chen had learned that lesson the hard way. Now she was making sure an entire generation learned it the easy way, by seeing it modeled, by experiencing it firsthand, by becoming living proof that when you stop making assumptions about people and start seeing their potential, extraordinary things happen. They'd burned her jacket, but they couldn't burn the fire it had lit inside her. And that fire was now burning bright enough to illuminate the path forward for thousands of people who'd been walking in shadows, waiting for someone to notice they'd been capable of flight all along.